All right, I'm going to be reacting to this video from Gio in the Philippines. It's from approximately 3 weeks ago. Today is August 2nd, 2025, by the way. And as you can see, it's titled Why Tourism is Down in the Philippines and Why Expats Are Moving Elsewhere. All right, so let's just get into it right off the bat. I have not watched this video yet.
Hey guys, in today's video, I want to talk about why tourism is down in the Philippines and why expats are choosing other countries. And yes, I know people have mentioned this before, but today we got some data that has come out about the first quarter of the Philippines. So I'm going to go over that with you in today's video and express my own feelings about why that may be as well. It's actually dropped significantly in 2024 and now 2025. And it's not just because of world events. Expats, digital nomads, and even longtime retirees are starting to look elsewhere. Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, and even Eastern Europe. But why is this happening to a country with world-class beaches, friendly people, and a pretty low cost of living, although not as low as other countries in Southeast Asia here? And
okay, first of all, I want to say that I have not made up my mind of where I'm going. This is, as of now, the second video I've made. They're both so far on the Philippines, but I'm very open to other places. Malaysia, he mentioned, is probably number one, number two between the Philippines on my list. And that's because I watch a channel called Nomad Capitalist, and Andrew Henderson, the founder, the guy who's always on video, if you've never seen his channel, he's super high on Malaysia. Like it's like his favorite place in the entire world. And he thinks it's way cheaper than, say, Thailand or the Philippines. It's just look up one of his videos. I don't want to try to go into it. I don't have all the information memorized, but Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur specifically are really, really high on his list. So I'm considering that. I'm also considering maybe a place like Colombia. I would like to learn Spanish, I'm not going to lie. I would consider Argentina because as long as I can take care of my bills and I can support myself, basically in 2 years, give or take with some processing time and whatever, 2 years I could get citizenship, like an actual second passport. And while it's almost impossible to renounce or give up that citizenship, that gives me access visa-free to China, Russia, and India, which, you know, in addition to the US passport that I have, basically gives me the entire world for all intents and purposes. So, you know, those are some places. And then, of course, Andrew Henderson, he really likes other places like Georgia, and not the state, the country, Georgia, Tbilisi, and also Montenegro, among others. So I do watch his channel quite a bit, but that's not what this is about. I'm just going to react to the rest of this video. The point is, though, I'm not set on any one place. I'm considering options, and future videos will be talking about other places. So let's just continue with this.
English speaking and fantastic dating. So in this video, I'm going to break it down on what's really going on and what it means for future travelers and expats like you. Stick around. Hi, so the article came out and the Philippines ranked dead last in Asian countries, number 7 out of 7, I guess, in tourist arrivals in 2025, and that would be all the way through April. And so only 2.1 million visitors actually showed up this first quarter here in the Philippines, while Thailand and Malaysia exceeded.
Wow. So as you can see right there, Philippines only 2.1 million visitors compared to Thailand at 9.55. Now, when I first started thinking about going to Southeast Asia for the first maybe 2 years, this has been like maybe 5 or 6 years that I've been thinking about it. I was thinking about Thailand. Most specifically, that's really the only one I ever heard about people going to. The Philippines too, but Thailand was kind of like the big thing. Well, you know, as time goes on and I learn a little bit more and I've done more research and hey, Thailand would probably still be awesome. I love the food. For sure. I think Thai food is probably the best in the entire region when you're talking about Southeast Asia. I think Chinese and Japanese food is also super awesome, but those are East Asian, a little bit different. But Thailand doesn't really have a visa that would work for me unless the channel blows up or I have some other kind of decent or more income, especially something I can do remotely. Then, Thai Elite Visa would be the way to go. And that's expensive. I don't remember off the top of my head how much it costs, but these things always go up in price. They never come down in price. So unless I could get the Thai Elite Visa with room to spare, I don't really see that on my in my future, except for traveling. Like I wouldn't mind being there for a month or two. I think that would be a lot of fun. It would also give me a chance to kind of explore and see if that's where I might want to be if things financially really, get going and improve. But man, dead last in this area. I mean, Singapore Singapore is off the table because obviously it's like Hong Kong. It's a completely different stratosphere as far as how much it costs to live there. And also it's super tiny. So, that's not even a consideration, but this is pretty surprising.
So in the past, the Philippines was actually kind of top of the bucket list for destinations. So what exactly has changed? So some of the key reasons that the newspaper article stated, I'll flash it up here while we're speaking: slow recovery after COVID-19, infrastructure and travel costs, and perception of safety and convenience. There's been incidents that have happened. There's been incidents in Mindanao, which has kind of always been the kind of no-go zone. But in Angeles, a Korean tourist was killed, and all these things are starting to affect the tourism industry. And even expats are kind of thinking, is this the best place for me to retire? So let's kind of start with the infrastructure issues here in the Philippines. Number one would be like poor roads and unpredictable transportation. Every time I fly, there always seems to be some kind of delay. And it's an archipelago, so, getting from place to place, you're taking an airplane, and then you got to take a taxi, and then you got to take a jeepney, and then you got to take a motor.
So I'm looking at the last paragraph that's on screen right here, and it says the Philippines has beautiful beaches, delicious food. I don't know about delicious food. I've never really eaten Filipino food, but what I've heard is that it's a lot of fried food. It's probably, I guess, pretty salty and really fatty. So it's really maybe decadent, you would say. And I think that's something that, if that's true, and you guys can leave a comment, please, to let me know about the food, but I've heard from more than a few people that really the Filipino food is not that good. Like, I'm not interested in eating a lot of fried, fatty, salty food. I don't go to McDonald's, for example. So I'm not the cleanest eater in the world, but like, give me some vegetables and rice and, fried food once in a while, pizza once in a while, etc. And I've been to Jollibee. Like, there's some Jollibees around me here in Southern California, and I love it. I mean, that sauce for the fried chicken that they have, that gravy, wow, it's phenomenal. I love it. But I only eat there like maybe a few times a year. So I don't know about that. Friendly people, yeah, I mean, everybody thinks Filipino people are friendly. I work with a couple at my workplace, and yeah, I mean, they're great. But it also lacks roads, reliable airports, and public transportation. Most importantly, the prices here are too high, one local shared. Back to Andrew Henderson, he does say that Malaysia is far cheaper than the Philippines. And for someone who doesn't know, like I didn't know, I always just imagined the Philippines is a really cheap place, dirt poor, which obviously is not really a good thing. But when you're talking about making US money or UK money or whatever, and your money goes a lot farther, I've always heard that the Philippines is really cheap. Thus, you can live a much better quality of life. But apparently, it's not quite as cheap as one would imagine. Nothing I can really do about reliable airports, but I've basically been thinking the entire time when I think I'm going to move to the Philippines, it's without question BGC, Bonifacio Global City, in the Taguig or Taguig. I don't know how it's pronounced. I apologize, but everybody knows BGC most likely. And yes, it is expensive. I've looked at a lot of condo tours. I've done a lot of Google Street Views and like walking around virtually. And one of the other guys I watch online, I mentioned him, I think in my last video, Legal Mindset. He's an American attorney. He's always going around different places in Southeast Asia. And when he's in the Philippines, he always stays in BGC. That's also where Vitaly was mostly staying around, if you guys are familiar with that piece of crap. Anyway, I don't really see a lot of the negatives affecting me in BGC. It's obviously modern. It's very reliable. I hear they have their own water supply or their own electricity grid. Their internet's fast. I would definitely want an inverter air conditioner because it's going to make the costs much lower. They are so much more efficient than non-inverter air conditioners. And if you're not familiar with that, just do a quick Google search. And if you're thinking about staying somewhere, whether it's in Makati or Cebu City or Angeles City or wherever, definitely consider the type of air conditioner that the unit you are renting has installed. I think that would make a huge difference. I've heard it can be the difference between like $50 and $200 a month for electricity based on your air conditioning type. So I don't really see public transportation also being much of a factor because in BGC it's small. I might get a motorbike. I might just stay in kind of my little neighborhood because it is a fairly small city within the city as it is. And as long as I'm not going out at 2 p.m. when it's blazing hot, I don't think it would be that big of a deal to basically walk places, and the malls are aplenty. They're really, really nice. Everything is nicely landscaped, but it is very reliable. It's not near a beach, or as far as I know, it's not near a beach. It's just a city within a city, and it's very, very nice. It's just not cheap. And like Nomad Capitalist says, Malaysia or Kuala Lumpur city center would be cheaper than BGC. Although from what I've looked at in condo tours, they're, kind of the same. They're in the $600 to $800 range for like a studio or a small one bedroom. I don't think there's really too much difference, at least as far as I've seen so far.
Bike up this hill to see this site. I remember going to a famous waterfall in Cebu, and the transportation was you could take a taxi up to the location, to the waterfall, or a bus or whatever. And from there, you would have to hop individually one-on-one on these motorbike riders. And they would have you sit sideways with no helmet or anything and take you down like at like full speeds down these, crazy roads to get to this waterfall. This was in South Cebu. I was thinking to myself, my God, can you imagine this would never pass in the West?
While I haven't been in the Philippines, I've never been there before. I have been to Bali. And when he's talking about the people sitting on the back of motorbikes, like sideways with no helmets and just like, I've seen that. Like, that's the way they do it there. And it boggles my mind. I'm like, I'm just going to fall off the motorbike and kill myself. Like, I've seen people like carrying, have like refrigerators on the back of their scooters, like just small little motorbikes, I'm not used to it. I'm not saying I think it's kind of weird, but it's just a different culture. I understand that. I'm not like saying it's bad. It's just different and I'm not used to it. So what he said there just kind of reminds me of something that I saw in person, and it just, you got to know that you're not in your home country and things work differently for sure.
But that's some of the transportation things that I'm talking about. And even the domestic flights can be long and costly here in the Philippines. So domestic flights from island to island. Now, if you pull up a whole month and if you're really flexible, then you can get some pretty good rates. I can fly from Bacolod to Cebu on the low end for about $27, $30. But if you're just buying kind of last minute, you're here and you, hey, I want to head over to Cebu, and you're just purchasing within that week, it can be $100 sometimes, a couple $100 sometimes. It's crazy. And if you compare this with the buses and the trains in Vietnam and Thailand, well, you can see what the issue is, and for much lower costs. Yeah, that inter-island travel is difficult. So if you want to go to these, you got to land in the main island. And then if you want to get to this little small island, like you want to go to Apo Island off Dumaguete, or you want to get to Camotes or Bantayan, there's all these different little islands that are just gems, but it's difficult to get to. And so a lot of people just don't. They fly into a main place like Cebu, Manila, Dumaguete, whatever, and there they stay.
Yeah, I mean that's what I would do. I know myself. Like I said, I'm 47. I've lived at least half of my life, probably, hopefully not a lot more than half. But I'm not. I mean, yeah, I can see myself maybe once in a while going to a beach or going to a far-flung island, or taking a vacation somewhere, sightseeing. But I'm a pretty simple, boring person. I would most likely just stay in my condo in BGC. I'd go to the mall. I'd go to the cafe. I'd go on dates. I'd see movies. I would go to the gym, cook. Basically just live a simple, boring kind of life in an urban center like I currently kind of already do. It would just be higher quality and less cost. But I'm not really a big person that goes out for fun. Like, I don't drink. I'm not going to go to bars. I'm not into doing anything crazy. I don't even really go to, museums or baseball games or anything like that. Like, just let me sit at home. I'm going to watch YouTube. I'm going to make content. I'm going to do art. I'm going to try to work on my health and fitness. Pretty simple stuff, really. I'm not the kind of person who's going to be flying from island to island and exploring and always backpacking and taking buses and things like that on a regular basis, if even once a year, probably less than once a year. I'm just not into that kind of stuff.
And airport upgrades here are going very slow. Now, the Cebu airport's fantastic. I really like the Cebu airport. It's as nice as anything else I've flown in. But the Manila airport is a disaster, and it remains one of the most congested airports in all of Southeast Asia. In fact, most people do everything they can to avoid it. I know I do. And if you look at some of the expat forums like Reddit and other forums, a lot of people will leave, or a lot of comments are like, it's too expensive to travel from island to island. That's a big thing that they complain about. And the second one is, it just feels so underdeveloped compared to the rest of Southeast Asia, where you got trains and everything is just so much more organized. And here,
so I've been to Bali. I don't remember any trains there, and I know the taxis. Of course, they see a foreigner, they're going to charge crazy amounts of money, but it's still cheap for a foreigner. So you're still getting ripped off comparatively to what someone who knows better. That's always going to happen. You just kind of have to put that, calculate that into your costs. But I have spent a few months in Hong Kong, and man, I mean, I love their transportation network, their system of subways. And I mean, they have like entire malls, and it's almost like a sub-city below ground where there's tons of shops and things to do. And it's like, it's pretty insane. And it's been a few years since I've been there, but and I'm a Disney fan, so of course I had to go there. And they have like the final train that goes from like the last stop to the Disneyland stop is like a whole separate Disney themed train. Like, it's really, really cool. I'd love to go again. That would probably be the one place I would go more than any other, would be to Hong Kong. It's very expensive, of course, but if you want to know good transportation, Hong Kong definitely knows what they're doing. And thankfully, like I said, I'm not really into traveling. Like, people ask me why, if you don't like traveling, why are you interested in going to the Philippines or to Thailand or to wherever? And I say I like to live in places. I like to experience a new place for 3 months, 9 months, a couple of years, and then move on. I'm not really interested so much in being a tourist. I'm not interested so much in going someplace for a weekend or a week. Obviously, there are some cases where that happens. Like I was just in New York City in May or April, whatever, one of those 2 months. And I'd only been there once before, many, many years ago. And, I only had like two and a half days there. So I was always on the go. And speaking of good transportation, I mean, clearly New York has excellent transportation. I know they could always invest more and some things might be old, but it's an old city. So I'm not really looking into transportation options, but from what he's saying, I mean, it definitely sounds like if that's the kind of person you are, then you would want to definitely take that into consideration. And that would be a con or a negative as far as choosing to stay long term in the Philippines. But I don't really think it affects me.
It's chaotic at best. I call the Philippines organized chaos. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm here living here. I mean, obviously, I like it for some reasons. For me, the English, the dating, the easy visa is great for expats. Tourism, on the other hand, if I was just coming here to be a tourist, to see places, I probably would choose other countries. And cost of travel is higher than it should be. Domestic flights, like I said, are 2 to 3 times higher than neighboring countries. From Bangkok, I can fly over to Cambodia in an hour, and it's like the same price as just flying over to Cebu. It's crazy. And food and accommodations, no longer as cheap as before. I mean, when I first got here, things were super cheap. I'd spend a couple hundred pesos on a meal. Accommodations now, for me, the price point to get to a decent hotel, over $50 easy. Now, if you get $50 and you go to Thailand and Vietnam, you get high end. Vietnam, I stayed in Da Nang at $30 a night, and I had a beautiful, beautiful hotel. And here, not so much. And there's a lot of hidden costs in the Philippines that people also complain about. Terminal fees when you go to the bus station, the ferries, dual pricing, foreigner tax, different rates, for a foreigner, limited public transport, and very few walkable cities. And if you've been here, you'll know what I mean. It's very hard to walk around the Philippines. They don't have very well developed sidewalks. And when they do, people are parking on them or driving up on them anyway. And so that equals more Grab and taxi rides, costing more money. So safety and local issues, a lot of travelers will report petty crimes. I just ran into an expat here in Bacolod. He said that one of the staff went through all his stuff and he had to go and cancel credit cards and stuff because he didn't know what had been compromised and what wasn't. Scams, safety concerns, especially in the less touristy areas. Gun ownership is big here. Political instability in some provinces are deterrents. Western media often highlights the negative news, kind of creating fear. So that is part of it, but, those things happen. Meanwhile, like Thailand, Vietnam, and Malaysia feel safer. They are cleaner and more organized for a lot of visitors. When I visited these other countries, and other people can chime in, it just feels more organized.
And he's saying it feels more organized. So sometimes, stats don't tell the whole story. Sometimes it is a feeling. It's, you can't really put your finger on it. It's just like if you're anywhere, you stay somewhere and does it feel safe? Does it feel pleasant? Are people kind? Are people nice? Are they fake nice? All that kind of stuff. You just have to, understand. You don't have to understand. It's just, everybody's different. And one place could be great for one person. It could be okay for another. And it could just be absolute nightmare for the third person. So just take everything into account. And I think that really comes back to the whole thing of living somewhere for a while and just testing it out before you really make a commitment. I guess unless you have to, but I don't really think most people have to do that. So, there are pros and cons, and I can do all the research online that I can, and I am. But at the end of the day, you really just need to live somewhere, feel it out, see what the vibe is. Do you feel safe? Does the cost of living work for you and your particular income? Is the visa, the dating, the shopping, all that stuff, the bureaucracy. Does all of that stuff work for you? And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, then you're not tied anywhere. You might have a lease that you need to fulfill. But when that expires, or if you're on a month-to-month, whatever, then find another place to go, figure out what the visa requirements are, go there and feel that place out as well. But, definitely every place basically has gotten more expensive. So he's talking about the Philippines, the food and the accommodations have gone up in price, but places that used to be cheap, like Argentina or Georgia or Montenegro, for example, these places maybe 3-4 years ago were outstanding, or they even have like golden visa opportunities that they either canceled or they've raised the price of. So things are more expensive now than they used to be, but at the same token, things 3 or 4 years in the future from now are probably going to be more expensive than they are today. So keep that in mind too. There's probably, just like buying a house, if you're waiting for prices to come down, you're probably going to be waiting forever and be disappointed. So try to get into the position where you can afford it and then just do it, because it's never going to become cheaper. It's always just going to be more expensive.
It feels safer. And for a lot of people, that's big. The Philippines can be very rough still. It feels almost like the Wild West at times, which is kind of exciting, but at the same time, it does wear on you a bit. So why are expats leaving and moving elsewhere? So Thailand, number one, strong healthcare. They do have a lot of different visa options that, like digital nomad visa. Even though they've come out with one here, it still isn't quite a smooth process and really available for every country yet. And great infrastructure. And when you get elderly, that healthcare is very important, and the Philippines lacks in that. Vietnam, fast internet for people, like if you're a digital nomad, great food, low costs, and a very big emerging digital nomad scene. Malaysia, you got the MM2H program, great English-speaking population, and very modern cities. Philippines, still attractive, but kind of losing its competitive edge. Now, I've spoken to dozens of expats recently who've left the Philippines after 2 to 5 years. That seems to be kind of the point where expats are like, okay, it's not for me, I'm going to move on. It seems to be that 5-year mark, that 2 to 5 year mark is where expats are like, okay, it's not for me, time to move on. If you're over 5 years, it seems like they're just get used to it, or they accept it and they're here for the duration.
I think that's pretty fair, right? I think that makes sense. 2 to 5 years, just like anywhere or any relationship for that matter. The honeymoon phase, so to speak, has worn off. All of the novelty is gone. It's just day to day. You wake up, you work, you cook, you watch TV or Netflix or whatever the case may be. And you go to sleep, you rinse and repeat. Sometimes you do something a little bit fun or out of the ordinary. But if you like someplace after 5 years, then you probably like it. I mean, you're still there, you're still enjoying yourself. And if you kind of get a little bit of an eye for something else, you can always go and see how you feel. And that's the beauty, is that you can always move wherever you want. But I think it makes sense. Like, for example, if I do decide that the Philippines is where I want to go and I want to go to BGC and it's perfect, well, it might be perfect for a while. And then I might, there might be just little things here and there that start to annoy me, things that I'm not quite happy about. And then I start to, look for Bangkok or Kuala Lumpur or wherever else, Buenos Aires, something like that. So there could always be the case where I really, really like it, and then I start to not like it as much. And that makes total sense. But hopefully you find a place that you really like long term. And I didn't really think too much about the healthcare. I'm still young. I'm healthy. I get my physicals. I'm not in any kind of danger, or I don't have any kind of really risks. I've been very lucky. I've also, I don't, like I said, I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't really do anything. And I think my genetics are good, knock on wood. Nothing really you can do about that. But I think things are pretty good. But who knows? You could fall and sprain your ankle, or you could get an infection from cutting yourself and then, coming into contact with some kind of a bug or whatever the case may be. Or, it could just be the case of like an STD. So you want to make sure that you have a good hospital, you have a good English speaking doctor. And of course, if you want to go somewhere like the digital nomad options, as far as I know, one of the requirements, no matter which country it is that you have verifiable health insurance. So like an international health insurance plan. I haven't looked into that yet because I'm not at that stage, and I have good health insurance in my current role, which I would lose because it's not a remote position. But I would need to have health insurance. And then even if I have health insurance, I need to make sure that there are good hospitals, not only good hospitals in the city or the country, but ideally within a few blocks of wherever I'm staying. So I'm going to be considering where the hospitals are, and then looking at like where the condos and apartments are near that hospital, because I don't want to be out far-flung places where, maybe there's like a little provincial medical center where it's just not going to be ideal, and then they have to airlift me to a bigger hospital that has the tools that can assist me. And then that's going to be a fortune. You got to pay for the transportation. So that is something that I didn't really consider, but I do need to remind myself that medical care is something to not take lightly and not to skimp on.
Or they probably have met a partner and they're with her and her family's here and she lives here and all that. So it just makes sense to stay here. But more and more foreigners that I know are relocating with their Filipinas. So maybe that is the best option, because I still think Filipinos are one of the greatest girls to find. But when I talk to different expats, they just feel like they kind of outgrew the Philippines. The first thing most people say is they loved the people, friendly people. I always hear that. The Philippine people are so friendly, they're so happy, they're so approachable, easy to talk to. But most people wanted more ease, more value, and variety. So can the Philippines turn this all around? That's the question. As someone who's lived in the Philippines for 9 years now, I love it here, but I understand why some people get fed up and leave and not coming back typically. So if you're considering visiting or moving here, do your research, look beyond the beaches, look beyond the dating, talk to real expats in expat forums. Good place, even though they sometimes can be a little bit unfriendly in these expat forums, and make sure it's the right fit for you long term. And also be open to other countries just in case,
And I'm just going to wrap it up here. But yeah, exactly that way that he's kind of ending this video, and I mentioned before, is that right now, the Philippines and Malaysia are top two. They kind of jockey for position. There's nothing is settled. I haven't actually been to either country. I'm just doing online research. And I find street interviews with expats to be really helpful. I really like hearing everybody's different perspective, where they came from, why they chose to go where they went. But, ultimately, I want to find a place where I can at least go for 6 months and sort of, I think that's enough time to get a feel for whether you like the place, whether it works for you, because everybody's different. So Philippines, Malaysia, Argentina, maybe Montenegro. I don't really know. I mean, it's beautiful if you're right there by the beach. I've heard the same thing as with the Philippines, is that it used to be an affordable place. Now the traffic is really bad and the costs have gone way up. But if you've never heard of Montenegro and you just kind of zoom in on Google Maps and you just put yourself sort of near the sea, man, it's a really, really, really pretty place. But, there are so many things to consider and the world is so big. So this channel so far, I know 2 Philippine videos, but that's not what the channel is about. The channel is just about finding a life that works better for me than it does here. And I'm open to a lot of places, so I will start exploring topics related to Malaysia and some other places that I've mentioned already a few times. So that's going to do it for now. I just want to end by saying, if you like the video, please like the video. If you find value, if you enjoy this kind of content, you want to hear more about my story, or you just like my presentation, consider subscribing. That would be awesome too. I really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you very much for watching if you've gotten this far, and I will catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.